I'm going to try recording this video with natural light because I don't know what I'm doing and I can't be bothered to set up my lighting equipment. Hi, Liam here, and I'm editing this video and I've only just realised what my hair looks like. What is happening here? Like a nest that a wild animal, perhaps a rat, would live in. I just want to point it out because, God, I didn't prep for this video at all. And I didn't even think to look at myself in the mirror before I started, but oh my god, I need to get a haircut. Have you seen this? Anyway, I won't keep you from the video, but I just wanted to just acknowledge this mess. Bye. Yesterday, Nintendo broadcast one of their Indie World showcases, and I thought I would take a little bit of time to talk about my favourite games from the presentation, event, what do we call these? Broadcasts, I guess? I was going to go over everything that was announced, but I thought it would be more entertaining for you and less work for me to just go over my 5 favourite games that were announced during the show. Fuck me, what's going on? So, in general, I thought the Indie World showcase was very good. I do normally enjoy these Indie World showcases, maybe not as much as a proper direct, but definitely more than a mini direct or a direct that is focused on just one game. I mean, obviously indie games are kind of my jam, so it's really nice to see what interesting games are coming specifically to the Switch. But I think Nintendo are kind of really hitting a new stride with their directs. I know we had some pretty tame ones last year, those partner directs were pretty naff. But the last few directs that the company have done have been a little bit better. Seems to be a return to form for them in terms of just enjoyable content, nice pacing. The only thing I will say is that some of these games are coming out next year or winter 2021, and Nintendo are normally quite good at not packing their directs with games that are quite far away, but that's probably more to do with the current working situation. A lot of companies are still trying to adapt with working from home. The situation is still not over. A lot of games have already been delayed, and I do think that 2021 is going to be, in general, a very quiet year for gaming, because this is the year we're going to really start to feel the repercussions from last year. But the games themselves were good. I thought they were really nice, a nice varied selection. I really love that Nintendo do these specific Indie World directs for smaller games. I know that indie games quite often end up in their proper directs, but these are important. It highlights really cool games and projects for the Switch. The Switch is now the de facto indie machine, right? So Nintendo have a vested interest to do these kind of presentations. But I just think it's really beneficial for the industry. It puts a lot of really cool games on people's radars that probably wouldn't be there otherwise if they were just being announced in traditional ways on Twitter or normal press releases or covered online by idiots like me. There was a few absences here that I think many people were expecting. We didn't see Silksong, the Hollow Knight sequel, we didn't see Deltarune, the Undertale sequel, presumably because they're not ready yet, but there's like a real feverish pitch now for Silksong especially. I think we will see that at a Nintendo presentation, but probably an actual direct. It's big enough now, I think, to be a part of an actual direct and not in one of these little indie presentations. So anyway, let's dive into my list of the 5 games I'm really excited to play. These are games that are upcoming, not games that were released yesterday during the presentation. Things like that Lonine, is that what that's called? The one where you're just a little tiny gremlin man in a cave and you've got to wait 400 real-time days for the kin to return. I really like the idea of that. I think it's a really fun idea for a game, and it has a bit of Peter Molyneux curiosity what's in the cube about it. This idea that the whole game is the waiting, and it's linked to real-time days. I mean, Animal Crossing does something pretty similar when you think about it. I guess it's just contextualized in a different way. Yeah, Lonine looks interesting. God knows when we'll see reviews of that. I assume you can just move the system clock and cheat? I don't know nothing about it. Anyway, this list is in no particular order. These are just 5 games I really like the look of. So at number 5 we have Road 96. This is the procedural narrative adventure game where you're on a road trip and you play as a random teenager or a number of different teenagers. I don't think it was very clear as to who you are as the player. But the trailer was really, really good at explaining how you can approach the game in so many different ways. I know the kid in the trailer was saying that they met this person either just on the side of the road, or they were driving, or they were in a taxi or the bus. From my understanding, it kind of looks like a immersive sim crossed with I guess like a visual novel Telltale style point and click adventure. It's a really nice idea. I mean, the problem with Telltale style games anyway is that these games are quite linear and your choices don't usually matter that much. So the idea that this entire game is built on this system that allows you to make decisions that change the game completely, presumably, we don't know, maybe the ending is always the same, seems really, really good and really, really cool and interesting. I like how there was lots of different gameplay styles shown off. You can drive, you can shoot. There's like traditional narrative dialogue options. I know there was a bit where you're in a bus and someone had pulled a gun on you or another passenger and you have to try and talk them down. There was a bit where you're in the back of a taxi and the taxi driver is getting angry or is a bit unhinged and you've got to try and talk him down. It looks really, really nice, really interesting. Loved the graphical style, loved the game's whole vibe. I think it's set in 1996. There was like a poster or a campaign event going on, and it had 1996 on it. Looks nice, looks like my kind of jam, and I think it was the perfect game to start off the presentation with as well. Kind of very punchy, came out the gate swinging. I'm into that a lot. It looks really, really cool. Next up, we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, which I have forgotten the name of. Let me just check Nintendo's YouTube channel. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Now, I'm not a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have no affinity with the concept of the Teenage Turtles, as it were. I think the only piece of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle media I've ever consumed is the first Michael Bay film. Did Michael Bay make that, or did he produce it? The first, like, modern live action where they looked horrible, that film. So I have, like, no interest in the concept of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Just not for me. I've never played the arcade game that this game is very clearly based on, but it's developed by Dotemu, who did Streets of Rage 4 last year, and that was such a pristine brawler that I am absolutely hyped for this. I think it looks fantastic. I absolutely love the art style. I think the pixel art is beautiful. I know for a fact, based on Streets of Rage 4, that Dotemu are probably going to deliver a very, very, very solid brawler. Had a lot of humour and quirks to it. There was a bit where there was a load of ninjas working on computers in the background, and as you defeated a few of the enemies in the foreground, they ripped their ties off and jumped into action, and I love shit like that. It looks really, really fun. So yeah, based on Streets of Rage 4 alone, I think Shredder's Revenge is going to be something very special, even separate from the fact that it is clearly trying to whip that old arcade beat-em-up brawler that everyone over the age of 35 is horny for. Next, we have the game that I was the most hyped to see. I did a little squeal like a child when it came on screen, and that's Ollie Ollie World. I absolutely adore Ollie Ollie 2 Welcome to Ollywood. It's one of my all-time favourite games. It's a precise 2D platformer that plays like Rayman Legends or Super Meat Boy crossed with Tony Hawk. It's all about navigating these tightly designed levels while attempting to maintain a consistent combo, as well as completing multiple little missions and challenges. And it's just mechanically perfect. It's on Switch now. In fact, my review of the game keeps getting loads and loads of views every time they reduce the price of it, and yesterday it got like 1,000 views in an hour, because I guess everyone saw the trailer and was like, oh, this one's cheap, I wonder if anyone's reviewed it, and I can only assume I'm one of the few people to have reviewed it, even though I hate that video. People seem to watch it and enjoy it. So Ollie Ollie World is the third entry in the Ollie Ollie series, and it's taking the series into 3D for the first time, but it's not real 3D. Effectively, it's going to let you move between the foreground and the background, moving between different courses or routes through a level in the same way that I guess Little Big Planet is 3D. 2.5D, I guess, is probably the technical term. The most important thing for me, and the thing that I think the trailer did highlight, is that the precise instant nature of the gameplay looks to be the same here as it was in the sequel, Ollie 2. And for me, that's all I care about. The visuals are the biggest change, however, between 2 and World. 2 was presented in a visual style that was very clean and sharp. It was almost like vector images in the way that it was presented. It looked really nice. It was really clear to see where you were as the character. It communicated itself very well using that style, especially compared to the original Ollie, which is really good, but I was put off it a little bit because it was pixel art, and I just thought it was a little bit harder for the game to communicate its core mechanics to you using that specific art style. But this game resembles Adventure Time in its visual style. It's all pastel colours and nice goofy characters, so I'm really happy to see them take this direction, because for me it proves that the developer knows that the core appeal of Ollie is that gameplay. Doesn't matter what it looks like, change the visual style with every single release for all I care. In fact, I would love that. I think that'd be really fun. And I think this visual design is perfect for this series. It looks lovely, it's got a lot of character, it should hopefully help the game have a distinct sense of identity that I think probably the last 2 games struggled to have. Eurogamer did a really nice little deep dive into the game yesterday where they spoke to one of the game's creators, and the team basically are trying to make a game that appeals to more people. It's not necessarily easier, but they're trying to maybe not punish people who aren't very good at playing the game, which admittedly, you know, those old games, they do have a pretty high skill ceiling and they're not very kind to the player. So I think they're going in a really cool direction with this, and I am over the moon that we're getting more Ollie. Next up, we have a game I was not really expecting to be part of this specific presentation, but it was cool to see it anyway. We have the House of the Dead remake. Now this is being developed by Megapixel Studio, who did the Panzer Dragoon remake last year that was received a bit poorly. I'm really excited that this is coming. I didn't realize this was going to be a thing, but apparently Megapixel had already announced they got the rights from Sega to remake the first and the second game, which is pretty cool. I think this looks ropey. Really ropey. The UI especially looks pretty naff, and in general it looks pretty low budget, but I kind of love that, and I'm really excited for this remake. Light gun games are some of my favourite games. There's something very magic about being able to point at the screen and pull the trigger to shoot. It's why I love old arcade light gun games. It's why I love VR, because light gun games kind of still have a place in the VR space now that you can't really play them on TVs using the old guns anymore. The Wii was the perfect console for light gun games. I think people forget just how good that console was, how chunky the controller was, how much it resembled a gun, the nice trigger on the back, and how many great light gun games there were on the Wii. House of the Dead Overkill, Ghost Squad, the Resident Evil light gun games. That's 3 light gun games. I don't know why I said load, but they were good ones. They were really, really fun. Link's crossbow training. See, there was 4. That's loads. And it's kind of weird that the Switch doesn't have many light gun games on it, because I guess the Joy-Cons are the same as the Wiimote in terms of their functionality. They're not as tactile as a Wiimote. I don't think they have as much heft to them in terms of, you know, pretending you're holding a gun, but they work the same, so I don't know why they haven't just ported over a couple of those old Wii games to the Switch. So I'm pretty happy that this is coming to the Switch. I think it's the perfect console for that, and I'm very excited to see what they do with it. It's as hammy and cheesy as the original game. It looks like they've kept in the bad translations, even though they've seemingly redone the voice acting to be just as bad as it was originally, which is part of the charm. If you didn't have that, then what's the point in playing House of the Dead, right? Like, this is a game you'd only play outside of a swimming pool or in an arcade bowling alley. Like, you want it to be big and dumb, and you want to just be able to have fun with pals and have a mess around, and yes, I'm very excited for this. And finally, we have kind of 2 games, but maybe just the one. So we have Hindsight and also Last Stop, both by Annapurna Interactive, who I rate really highly. I think they might be my favourite indie game publisher right now. So Hindsight charts a woman's life from birth to death. It looks like you explore static vignettes and can peer into other memories by changing your perspective, and you're transported to different locations. It looks wonderful. It looks to be the exact kind of game I would expect Annapurna to publish. It has that same kind of vibe as something like Maquette or What Remains of Edith Finch, which they published as well. I'm massively up for this. I love the art style. Ollie thought it was a sequel to Untitled Goose Game, which I can see why. I think the visuals are very similar. So yes, I'm up for that. There's not really much else to say about that really. It just looks like my kind of jam, a sad indie game about emotions. Sign me up. The other game, Last Stop, looks pretty good, I think. I'm kind of not sold on that, but I still wanted to mention it anyway because it is being published by Annapurna, so I have a feeling it's probably got something to it that must be interesting. It's like a body swap Freaky Friday game, which I don't think the trailer in the direct communicated that well, but there is another trailer on the Annapurna YouTube channel that shows off some gameplay, and I think it just does a better job of explaining what the game is. It looks like it has a good sense of humor. Again, that trailer was super serious, but the actual gameplay footage on the YouTube channel is really lighthearted and quite funny as well. So I'm kind of into the idea of it. I'm not sold because that trailer was so dark and edgy and weird, but the gameplay demonstration that I found does sell the game a little bit more to me. So that is all 5 of the games that I am excited to play. How have I been recording for 25 minutes? This was meant to be short. What games are you excited to play? Did you enjoy the presentation? Do you have any thoughts about it? Do you want to tell me what games you're excited to play? Do you just want to tell me what you've been up to today? You can. That comment section is below, and interacting with it helps me out, so say whatever the hell you want down there. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, watch that Ollie review, because that's what all the cool kids are doing at the moment, currently, apparently. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. I do put videos up every Sunday at 4, but I haven't for the past few weeks, but only because I've been doing them in the middle of the week. So I should just say I upload a video once a week, really, shouldn't I? Who cares? You don't care. Taddy bye.